Frank, who are we going to speak about today?
We're going to speak about Fabio Bartolotta. That's how you say it in Italian.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're going to cover him because he's very crucial to the Ridgewood series. He's one of the main components in the Giannini crew. He's the youngest killer in the crew. And we'll start from very young, at a very young age. Fabio, 9, 10, he was a real happy kid. He, because we go back. Of course, I'm closer to his uncle Paul. We're about the same age. We're like 9, 10 months apart. And Fabio is 3 years younger than us. So, but when his dad was around, his mom was around. He took interest in soccer. He was a really good soccer player. I mean, like standout. If he would have kept up with it, he would have been a real fast kid. Loving family. However, they come up from a real mobbed up family. Mom comes from Palermo, Bagaria, which is in Palermo, and it's a town that's known for organized crime. And not only that, they had very strong ties to the people in that town. Matter of fact, one of Paul's sister married somebody in the town that ran the town. So they were in. Paul's his old, that's Paul's oldest nephew. Fabio is the son of Francesca, who's the oldest of the 4 sisters. And Paul is 3 years. I just said that 3 years older than Fabio. By the time he's 10, his mother and dad get arrested. They go to prison. They get arrested in the Pizza Connection case. Mom's not yet. She's got incarcerated. She's out, but she's waiting to get sentenced. But who is it? And his grandfather is also on the land, Paul's dad. So he has his mother, his father, and his grandfather's in the land. They're looking for him. And he has another grandfather, Fabio, who was his father's father, who dies in prison a couple of years after. He was still out at the time. So this kid, all of a sudden, his world just fucking turned around. You know what I mean? He went from having everything to not having his parents. I mean, they weren't broke by no means, but it's just he's an 11-year-old kid. What the fuck, you know? And another aunt has her husband in jail too. So this kid was spending time at one time visiting jails, either be an uncle, eventually his mom. She gets sentenced. I'll get to that. The father and the grandfather. They when he comes back, they go see him too. Or they go see him on the lam. He was on the lam for a while. So they went to visit him as well. That's Paul's dad. Mother gets sentenced, and he's there with an aunt of his. And I remember this because, the kid was fucking broken. He was really broken. He had and his brother must have been like 2 at the time. He has a younger brother, 2 or 3. Mother gets sentenced. He figured they were going to give her like a year and a half, but the judge had a hard on with her, and they remanded her. They put cuffs on her, and the kid goes berserk. He goes right over the fucking where he's sitting. He's asking his aunt first. He goes, "What the fuck did they say? What did they say? Why they handcuffing my mother?" She goes, "Don't worry, I'll tell you in a little bit." I'll tell you. No. He just hops right over and starts grabbing, heart wrench, and he's grabbing the fucking CO, telling him, "Get off my mother, get off my mother." So this is the trauma he's going through. You understand? And you could have people out there saying, hey, "How do you feel bad? His parents sold him." He's a child. He's a child at that point. So you got to take that into fucking consideration. He's growing up. His aunt, he shifts from his aunt to a grandfather, and one who has him for a week, him and his brother, and then who has him the other week. I mean, they're real loving people. They're real protective. It wasn't like he was in foster care or nothing, but he doesn't have his parents, so it's difficult. His best friend at the time is Anthony Pipito, who's a current captain in the Bonanno family. They say, I don't know. I don't like to talk about active stuff. But growing up, they went to school together. They were always together, and Fabio was like very protective of Anthony, and Anthony was a good kid. He was a quiet kid, but his mother's family were very close to Anthony's family, who also comes from a long line of gangsters back home. The Pipitones, the Galenas, the Troyers. One of the Troyers is Fabio's goddad. I'll get to that. And they're from Carini and where's the other place? Torreta, which is close enough to Bagaria. They're from the Palermo region. They have a lot in common. They're bakers by trade, believe it or not. Somebody's like Paul's dad. But Paul's dad, even back in the day, he was a hustler in the '60s. He went from town to town doing what he had to do. So they were familiar with also the drugs of the '60s and the '70s. But Paul's dad also had that work ethic as well. They owned some of the best bakeries in the Ridgewood section at one time, and very good bakers too. Back to Fabio, he was growing up quick. I mean, this was his life. He, visiting his mom in West Virginia. She was at an all women's prison, and at the time, she was there with the farmers. Danny Farmer's mom.
Yeah. They went away for the same thing. Basically, they went
Same
away for it.
shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same shit. Yeah. Well,
Um,
what did they sentence her for? About how long did they sentence her?
they sentenced her to 4 years. So
4 years. Okay.
yeah, so she comes out around Francesca Bartolotta. She comes up around 87. So she reunites with her kid. Up to that, who's there too? Joe Gambino's mom was also there in prison too. Same thing. Tony Aiello's sister. All right. So he's getting that. He's getting the feel of it. Real close to Patsy Conti. Patsy Conti loved him. He was making him. He liked him a lot. He was good with money. He was able, didn't drink, liked to work out. Very good with the ladies too. Dressed impeccable. Always had the best stuff. Probably never wore clothes more than twice. As a kid, he had that kind of swag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Swagger, and that's how he was growing up. He was definitely in the mold. He would have probably been a really young kid when he got made. He was at a party. I remember, and we used to talk now and then. Back not now, but back then, he was at a Gambino party. So Patsy Conti had a Christmas party all the time, every Christmas. So he had his captains, soldiers there, all these people there, and he used to he'll tell like Fabio, "You're gonna drive me home tonight." He goes, "I'm gonna drive you," and the other people look like, "What the fuck?" He likes this kid. Yeah, there's always a dick waving contest about him, and he's young, so he drives him home, and he has his envelopes with him. But all the guys gave him the Christmas envelopes to Conti, and he goes, "Hey," he gives him two of them. He goes, "Thanks." He goes, "Yeah, yeah." He goes, "No problem." He goes, "I like you a lot." He goes, "You see, I made you drive me home." He goes, "Okay." And he was young. He goes, when Pat goes in the house, he waits for him to go in the house. He looks at the envelopes, and there's $20,000, $10,000 in each one.
Wow.
So
And
this
those were given to Patsy as like
Christmas thing, and he just gave it.
Christmas. Everybody, the capos or whoever they contribute, or his soldiers or whoever's under him, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he's basically making this kid.
Right.
He was not that fond of Paul,
Really.
because Paul was a gambler. I was a gambler. I know the feeling, and he just felt that Paul did whatever the fuck he wanted, and I can't emphasize that more
What
on
was
this.
Patsy's relationship with Paul's father, Filippo Ragusa, who was also involved in the same business Patsy was involved in?
They he represented Patsy represented the Palermo faction of the of the Gambino family. The ones especially that were either made on the other side or came and did business on this side. They flew under his flag once they came here. You understand what I'm saying?
I get it. Yeah,
And
yeah.
the same went for the Gambino brothers in Brooklyn. They did the same thing for the others. So you had like um the families I just mentioned, the Troyers, the Galinas, the Pipitones, the Raguses, and there's others. I'm just gonna keep it at that. And when they were here, they flew under Patsy Conti's um, flag, and especially in North Brooklyn, and then you had the ones in South Brooklyn, which, like I just said, the Gambino ones did that. In '93, he takes a trip to Rome, and his godfather, who's Giovanni Troia, this is Fabio, tells him, "Hey, if you go to Italy, and I know these Colombians, right? They have about 500 kilos to 700 kilos in Rome of cocaine. If I send you over there and you go back to Palermo, get together with some of your relatives, can you do back and forth ships from Palermo to Rome to pick this stuff up and sell it to the people we know in Palermo?" This is his godfather, right? Giovanni Troia.
Yeah, and how old is he at this point again?
He's about 20.
Okay.
Mind you, though, he's about 20 years old, but I believe he's up to his third body at this time. Okay, so he's involved in the three bodies that we talk about. And
Okay.
I also read somewhere that, because this is a lot of court stuff that he allocated to, or even he was debriefed on. And so at that point, while they're making this deal, he's a serial killer. He's 20 years old. He's somebody. He's grew up an angry kid, but he's very respectful to that life. And his godfather goes, "Can you go and broker that? You're going to get courier fees. So if you do that, I'll give you $300,000." He's 20 years old. He said, "Fuck it, yeah." He always was down to do anything. He said, "All right, I'll do it." So he goes to the airport and he meets up with this Colombian guy. So he gives him 10,000, a little under 10,000, traveling money, because you can't travel at that point with 10,000, whatever it was. He meets with him. He tells him where to go, and the guy, he's like, "Okay." So he goes to Italy, does the trip to Sicily, and he spends like 3 months over there. He's doing this back and forth, back and forth. He said we didn't even get done doing all of them. We just got done doing what, because you couldn't travel that kind of weight. So they were doing 3 months of traveling from Palermo to Rome. And when he comes back 3 months later, he was getting like homesick, which was fine. He left it to the other guys to do what they had to do. His godfather comes over and gives him 250,000, because he had given him 50,000 to stay there while he was there. Whatever he was doing, having a good time, or saving. I don't know what he did with his money, but all in all, he made the money. He gave him a fucking. So he was a busy kid. Um, he was involved in a attempted murder with his uncle. So this comes back to somebody who was familiar with them as growing up, was a friend of his dad. He was the Sal. They called him Sal the Franchise. Sal the French guy. Franchise means French guy. It's Sicilian. Canigliaro. That would be, we've talked about Steve Canigliaro. That would be his uncle. Two different people. Let's not put them in the same fucking category. But it's
Yeah,
his uncle.
no, yeah, we understand. Yeah,
Because
but
he was pretty clean cut. I heard he's a made guy. I don't know, but he was always a clean cut kid. So we don't want to give him that black guy. All right.
yeah, and then they got the other one with I don't know if he's a politician. I don't know what's going on.
That's
But,
my which I grew up with. I grew up with both of them. They're really good guys. They're really good people. I don't know
yeah,
if it's
yeah, yeah. We're not talking bad about anybody.
he grew up with the father, with Paul's father. They used to go out all the time. He ended up owing Paul's dad a whole bunch of fucking money. And he was one of the guys that when Paul was growing up, didn't come around that much, didn't act the same way when his dad was there. But anyhow, he put that aside, and Paul kind of he kind of felt that he reminded him of his dad when his dad was around. It wasn't like his dad, nothing like his dad. Just, it was one of his dad's friends. So he apparently gives him a thing of heroin. He goes, "Can you get rid of this?" Paul got it. I mean, robbed it somewhere, whatever. You know, Paul was a gambler. We all know that already. And he goes, yeah, sure, I'll get rid of it. He doesn't bother him for a couple of weeks, 5 weeks. Then he tells me, hey, 2 months later, he goes, you know, what the fuck? What happened? And he blows him off like, ah, what the fuck? That shit was no good. Come on, you know, what the fuck you doing? And they got into it a little bit. Paul was somebody who went from 0 to 60 real quick. And they decided that, you know what, I'm going to kill this motherfucker. Not only did he disrespect my father, now he's disrespecting me too. I'm going to fucking get rid of him. And they sat on him. They went to his house. They took the kid Anthony Siaka at the wheel. This is an attempted murder, by the way. So the statute of limitations, I just want to get that through.
Yeah,
Is
no, I
done.
understand.
Yeah, so we could talk about this. So Anthony Siaka's got the van, and he lives on Seneca and Harmon, around Seneca and Harmon, between Underdunk. They sit in a van. It's a stolen van. They see him coming home. They obviously they're casing him, and he's an older guy, so you figure he's probably like 50 at the time, maybe 55. And they see him, and Fabio gets out and shoots at him. Pop, pop. Well, he shoots on him. He gets hit, but no vital, and he just starts fucking running. He runs around the corner on Seneca Avenue to the yellow line. He collapses in the yellow line. Paul's fucking gun jammed, but now he tries it again and goes up to him. While he's on the floor looking up, Paul gets right underneath him, right by his chin, and shoots him. It goes through, but it goes out his cheek.
Jeez.
They thought he was dead. He just fucking healed over. He kind of goes to his mom's house. He was living with his mom at the time. You know, he was visiting. And his mom opened the door and he was there. I mean, fucking really, really strong guy, I guess, right? They take off on the fucking van. While they're taking off, on one of the corners, they see this fucking DT car with the lights on, just fucking booking right past, you know, going to see what the fuck is going on. So they got out of that. So they were busy. Nephew, uncle, and nephew were really busy. You know, there was another time where we all went to the house because the little brother, somebody shot at the house and it grazed the little brother, Filippo, Phil, who's probably 40 or something today. And this happened during like his mom started driving his car. He was the attendant of, he had a Pathfinder. He also had a Mercedes. We'll talk about this. And his mom was driving his Pathfinder, so they were following the mom. When the mom went in the house, they were following the car, but the mom was in his car, so they thought it was him. So when she goes into the garage, she opens the garage. You can't tell because it's, you know, you go into the garage, and I remember the house perfectly. Matter of fact, a murder gets committed in that garage. She walks in, and they think it's him, and they start firing. When they fire, the kid's playing like Nintendo or something and hits him in the leg. He grazes him and hits him. He's young. He's young at the time. Mayhem. They're fucking going crazy. We want to know what this is. We called the doctor. Well, we don't call. They do. The Dr. Solano. It was John DeLeo who got in touch with him. He was close with him. He's the same one when the three captains hit, when Santo Giordano gets hit. Comes
Right,
to
right.
He's a mob doctor, okay?
He's the mob doctor who everybody, all the old school, the real Italian dudes in Bushwick have relied on for many decades.
100%. That's who he is. He comes over there, and I'll get to the repercussions of that case and who they thought it was and what they made them go through. You know, but back to Fabio. He eventually gets arrested. You know, Fabio gets arrested one day.
The principal organizer of this violent criminal enterprise was 22-year-old Fabio Bartolotta, an individual with strong family ties to defendants convicted in connection with the Pizza Connection narcotics distribution case of the 1980s. Together with two other individuals, 25-year-old Paul Ragusa and 21-year-old Giuseppe Sciollara, Bartolotta recruited a group of young men from Queens to commit numerous armed robberies of various commercial establishments in Queens, including banks, retail stores, and one armored car, in addition to arsons for profit. Basing their operation out of a coffee shop called Cafe Giannini, located on Fresh Pond Road in Ridgewood, Queens.
As he's getting arrested, his judge is Sterling Johnson. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Sterling Johnson. He was once a cop on the streets, a narc cop. He went after Lucas. He went after Bonds. He became a district attorney at one time, and then he became a judge. But this is a weird story. So it's not a weird story. It's the truth. Fabio's dad is going to do a drug deal with somebody, and he has him in the car. He's about 10 years old, right before he gets busted. So he picks up this case. He gets bail on this case, and then gets picked up by the feds on another case. But this case in particular, they're going to see this guy that Fabio talks about on this 302's name, Charlie Kung Fu, who was another guy that in that business back in the neighborhood, and kind of remember who they're talking about, but they kind of think he got set up. The dad did. Anyhow, he's with the kid in the front seat. He has the shit in the back. Obviously the kid don't see it. His dad was not, it's just protocol. It's not a big deal to go do a deal as long as your kid don't see it. He's like telling, I don't know what happened. And he gets raided. And guess who's there? Sterling Johnson. He's working for the DA's office in New York. And now Fabio gets arraigned years later. He's probably 24 years old, 14 years later. And he stays in front of Sterling Johnson. Sterling Johnson, Bob Walden, the prosecutor's there, and he says, we got Fabio Bartolotta. So he looks up and he goes to the prosecutor, Walden. He goes, hey, by any chance, is he related to Salvatore Bartolotta? He goes, I believe that's his son. All of a sudden, his glasses went up. He looked up and he looked at him. And he goes, wow, you were that kid? He goes, you were that kid in that car that day? And Fabio said, yeah. And he was just devastated. Like, what the fuck happened to you? You know what I mean? This is what happens. This is life,
Yeah, so I mean, you're getting way ahead in the future. I mean, and this is for crimes that are far worse than what his dad was getting arrested for that night.
Well, yeah, we're not going to talk about the crimes he got. We're talking about.
But I'm just saying, like, to see, like you say, this is where you end up. This is what happens.
Right. I mean, at one point, I just mentioned that he had this with the 3 bodies we talked about already up to now.
Yeah,
he's eligible for the death penalty, and that's what happened. They go to Washington, D.C., because when you get a death penalty case, that's what they got to do. They go to D.C., and then D.C. has to approve. So at one point, it's Anthony Tabita, Vito, Guzzo, and Fabio, and they're looking for needles. They're looking to put needles in their arms, okay? They approved them. They said, yeah, we could go ahead with it. They go in front of fucking Sterling Johnson, and he's like, well, when situations like that, the government gets you the best lawyers they possibly can. They got to get you lawyers, and they're usually capital crime lawyers, So Sterling Johnson looks at the prosecutor. He goes, wait, listen. If I'm going to try these young men in a death penalty case, he goes, I want to make sure they got the best defense lawyers there is. You understand that, right? He tells that to the prosecutor, and he goes, yeah. He goes, this is how it's going to be. And that was it. So,
wow.
You could take this for whatever you want it to be, but I mean, what chance did he have in life? He was in a bad situation from very young, so that's where we are with that Fabio Bartolotta story.
Se partirò a Budapest ti ricorderai dei giorni in tenda quella moonlight. Fumando fino all'alba non cambierai e non cambierò, fottendomi la testa in un night. che può sembrare un po' fake, se curi le tue lacrime ad un rave. Maglia bianca oro sui denti blu jeans, non paragonarmi a una bitch così. Non era abbastanza noi sali sulla jeep, ma non sono bravo a rincorrere. 5 cellulari nella tuta gold, baby, non richiamerò. Ballavamo nella zona nord quando mi chiamavi fra, con i fiori nella tuta gold, tu ne fumavi la metà. Mi passerà, ricorderò i gileni ripieni di zucchero, cambio il numero. 5 cellulari nella tuta gold, baby, non richiamerò. Dov'è la fiducia diventata rida? È come l'aria del Sahara. Mi raccontavi storie di gente senza dire mai il nome, come l'amico tuo in prigione. Ma a stare nel quartiere serve fottuta personalità. Se partirà